gardening, and environment radio, flavored with a dash of humor. Welcome to intelligent, irreverent talk about plants and the planet they grow on. Your questions, comments, and participation are always welcome on Facebook and Instagram at The Mike Nowak Show and at Mike Now on Twitter.
Good planets are hard to find. Temperate zones and tropic climes, and true currents and thriving seas. Wind blowing through breathing trees. Strong ozone and safe sunshine. Well, good planets are hard to find. Good planets are in demand.
Brought to you by Bartlett Tree Experts. Every tree needs a champion. Go to bartlett.com.
Jet streams, perfect air.
And here they are, Peggy Malecki and Mike Nowak.
Well, good planets are in demand. Right.
And since I screwed up the intro there with the sound, I figure I don't care if I'm eating my breakfast.
You're eating your breakfast.
When we come here, I'm just gonna chomp down for a little. I guess we could play that music all the way through. And
there you go. Well, yeah, and I can't get into Restream, so.
What do you mean you can't? I sent you the password. I
need the login too.
Peggy, do you ever write these things down? Hello?
I do, but it doesn't work.
The login is the same as it usually is. My email address.
Okay.
So that
just keep eating your breakfast. I'll keep logging in. We'll figure
that's
this
all
out.
we need
Good
today.
Good morning, everybody.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Well, all I got to say about wait a second. Let's set this up right. All I got to say about all of this is
Alan.
See?
Yeah, I still can't get into Restream, so whatever. I'll deal with it later.
I'm into Restream. Come on.
Well, when you get a chance,
because everybody's saying good morning, and so all right. Well, then I got to say good morning since you're not going to say.
Well,
they did.
Well, I'm in Facebook, but there's one good morning so far. So, anyways, hello everybody. They don't care about us not being.
You got to get it on Restream because that's where all the.
Well, then please text me what email address to use because it ain't working.
That is it. I can't do anymore. Good morning, folks. Because I can't keep up with this. You know how much goes on.
Well, we were going to tell people about a town hall before we get into the show.
While
you're doing that, I will try one more time to get into here.
Alan!
That's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to play that all day long. See, this is your fault because you said I could do the video version of it as well.
Steve! Oh, I haven't even seen that so far.
Steve!
Do you have your headsets on at all? It seems like you're not paying attention to that. Okay.
No, I'm trying to get into Restream, and which it will not let me in. So
I would
pasted.
I would reboot. That's probably the only way to do it.
No, it just keeps saying invalid. So, anyways, on with the show.
Wow. Okay. Well, I can tell you who's here this morning. We've got Shelley and Dan Costa and Amos and Zan and Jeannie and Snappy J and Bruce. Anybody else out there? Tell us where you're watching from. Tell your friends, tell your enemies that they should be doing this as well on Sunday mornings. And please send the login information to Peggy because she seems to.
Well, I've tried both your regular email and your Gmail and the password you sent, and
really
doesn't like any of them. So
it asked me
I will
this
be monitoring
morning.
Facebook. It even gets me to identify where the steps are or where the palm trees are, and then it says invalid.
I would reboot. Oh, except that you can't because you're online here, right? Is that it? Well, no. Don't you have like 700 computers there different computers that you? Allison is there in Grays Lake. Hey, Allison. And we want to let folks know that We are talking gardening today. I'm watching outside. In addition to 10,000 sparrows in my backyard, I've got melting snow piles. I also have birdseed all over the freaking place.
Yeah,
Oh my
there's
God.
a bunch of birdseed there.
Oh my goodness. I'm just terrified it's all going to germinate. We'll ask our first guest. Well, our first guest from the Chicago Botanic Garden, and that's Lisa Hilgenberg, and we're going to get to her in just a second. And
There was also a lot of insects out yesterday. I don't know if you saw that.
No, I did not see that.
A lot of things flying around
The little
yesterday.
gnats flying around that...
Big things. No, I saw flies. I saw all sorts of things yesterday.
Well,
Yep.
I wasn't out. I was out for 10 seconds. To move chairs, to move dibs chairs. By the way, the city of Chicago has said, and those of you who don't know what dibs is basically you clean out your spot on the street from the snowbanks and you put your chair there and you save your place. The problem is the snow's all melted and people are still saving their places. So, hey, get over it. Get over it, folks, because I'm going to start trashing those chairs. They're going to end up in the garbage. So
Grump.
You know what? Well, they pile them. They pile them on my parkway when they're not. When the car's there, then they just throw the chair on the parkway. Like, no, that's not happening because I actually have daffodils coming up under the snow. The snow goes away, and I see daffodils coming up. I went, oh my goodness!
My snowdrops are starting to bloom. Yay!
I have tried to get snowdrops for years, and I've never done that. And I don't know. So I don't have.
Well, we have a town hall before we get to Lisa.
Yeah, let's do that, and then let's get over to Lisa.
On your parkway.
We talked last week about an effort in Chicago to keep people who are growing native gardens from getting fined. And meaning a lot of you know I've talked about this issue for 9 years on this radio show, which is just terrifying. The fact that we continue to have to do that. And what has happened is that the city of Chicago comes by, sees anything taller than 10 inches in your parkway or your front yard, maybe even your backyard, and issues you a ticket that can go anywhere from $600 to $1,200. It's their so-called weed ordinance. And the problem is they don't know the difference between weeds and native plants. I mean, to them, an overgrown lawn is the same thing as coneflower, which seems bizarre. I guess we're talking more like sedges and that sort of thing, or a little blue stem or whatever. They look at that and they go, weed.
Weeds.
And back in the day, some of the environmental stalwarts, superstars, rock stars, got tickets. I mean, people that I have on this show were getting tickets. And it was almost as if the city was going after them back in the day. And now a group of folks that includes the Illinois Environmental Council, Open Lands, Advocates for Urban Agriculture, Blacks in Green, I'm missing somebody, but they are getting together to try to rewrite the ordinance, or actually add an amendment to one of the ordinances, and this is where it gets really tricky, and I have issues with it. They're establishing a native garden registry in the city of Chicago, and the idea is that you voluntarily can sign up to be on the registry. Then if the streets and sand guys come by and say, hey, look at that's overgrown, they have to look it up, the property up on a list, and see if you belong to the native plant registry, and if you do, they're supposed to leave you alone. That's the theory. The problem is the native plant registry is going to be through the Department of Planning. You know what it's like to get a couple of city departments to talk to each other to make sure things don't go wrong. So this is
make sure the pile of applications got onto the website that they're looking it up on.
And the thing, and so to talk about this, these groups that have been, and by the way, this is Alderman Hopkins from the 2nd Ward, Brian Hopkins is putting this together. It's his amendment to the ordinance, and it's actually not an amendment to the weed ordinance. Again, this is why it really makes me nervous. It's an amendment to a different ordinance. And so there's a town hall this Tuesday at 7 p.m. Well, yeah, everything's virtual right now, but nobody's going to show up.
Some things are actually starting to be in person. That's why I was just clarifying.
Okay, well, it's a virtual town hall. Yeah. They may do virtual town halls for the rest of humanity. Who knows? And it's on Tuesday. And where are we putting this link so that folks can see it? I was going to ask you to put it up, but you can't even get on.
Well, no, I'm on Restream now, so I can put it up. I went back and now I'll tell you later how I figured out how to get into it.
Okay, so pop it up there so it's on all the links. If you've been watching the show and commenting now, we're putting the link up there through the Illinois Environmental Council, and we posted it on the Facebook page. So if you go back a few posts on the Facebook page, the Mike Nowak Show, you can find it as well if you want to be part of this town hall. And obviously if you don't live in the city of Chicago, it doesn't affect you. But if you do live in the city of Chicago, it's something you might want to be involved in, and we wanted to make sure that people knew about that. So that's where we start with that. And the only thing I have to say about that is Steve. All right, there we go. All right, let's bring in our guest who's been patiently waiting for us in the left-hand corner, and she's smiling at us, and she even has her vase of what is that, Lisa Hilgenberg from the Chicago Botanic Garden?
Good morning, Mike and Peggy. I'm glad to be with you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Behind me is a bowl of, it's a plant that I got at the grocery store. It's a Lenten rose, hellebore. And it's an evergreen perennial that can grow outside. And I have some in my front yard. But this was such a pretty plant to bring in for just, this time of year when things are a little bleak. And the bunches of tulips are out on my kitchen table. So it's nice to have a few cut flowers and a few plants inside as we try to get through until March.
Well, and you're already gearing up because that's what you do. You and I had a conversation the other day, and it was kind of interesting talking about what you need to know, first of all, is that Lisa is the manager of the Regenstein Fruit and Vegetable Garden at the Chicago Botanic Garden, which means that, and as I wrote in the blog, no pressure, she's responsible for 50,000 plants each year. Which means that you're planning them well in advance, and here we go. It's already, you're in the middle of your job. In fact, you told me the other day you've already are starting to order plants for 2022.
We work a long time in advance, that's for sure. We're trying to work further and further out to 2 years out. So, we have a 4-acre edible landscape at the Chicago Botanic Garden, the Regenstein Fruit and Vegetable Garden. And it has, 400 or 500 taxa of edible plants. So in addition to all of these annual vegetables that we plant each year, which is numerous, tens of thousands of vegetable plants, we have a fruit collection, we have a stone fruit orchard, we have an apple orchard, and blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, you name it, we've got it. So if you're interested in learning about how to grow these edible plants, come out, and we're working towards using the best growing methods, and there's lots to see. There's something for everybody there. We've got, the production greenhouses are growing a lot of our, all of our vegetable starts. And so they have had to think about this, a year in advance as they purchase seed and get these plants propagated and then move them into our organic greenhouse within the new range of houses down at the south end of the Botanic Garden. So they've been thinking about these plants for a long time, as I planned them about a year and a half ago. So we're excited about what we have to show you this year. We've got a full slate of spring, summer, and fall successions. last year, due to the pandemic, we had to forego our spring planting, as people remember, until we opened. But we are open, and we're so fortunate to be an outdoor venue and our visitors really find calm and quiet and respite here at the Botanic Garden. So I hope to see all of you out there and connect with you.
I want to talk about all of the above that you just mentioned, but first of all, I would like folks to know, and what I'm going to ask you is, oh no, you probably can't do that. Is it possible you can turn your volume down just a little bit there, Lisa? I'm getting a little bit. I hate to have you do that because you got the phone.
I'm going to move my phone here.
Yeah, I shouldn't do that because we'll lose the connection, and then I'll have to scream in pain.
Tell me how that is.
I think that's. Oh yeah, that's better.
Yeah,
all right.
I'm not hearing the
Better?
feedback
Okay.
now.
Yeah, okay, that's good. There we go.
Good.
What I put on the blog post, you can go to MikeNowak.net. The Chicago Botanic Garden has more online classes than you can possibly imagine, than you can shake a garden fork at. And it's hands-on gardening, container gardening, vegetable gardening, backyard chicken raising, pruning, shade gardening, perennial gardening, composting, lawn care, bonsai, beekeeping, edible plants, herb gardening, organic gardening. Wow, orchids and houseplant workshop. I mean, whatever your need is, it's there. And so I've got the link where you can do that. But the other thing we wanted to make sure you knew about is that Lisa will be teaching the organic vegetable garden in spring on Saturday, April 3rd. So the link is there if you want to sign up. Probably you should do it right away. I bet that'll fill up rather quickly. And it's interesting because the other comment I wanted to make is that you talk about the Regenstein fruit and vegetable garden. A lot of people who grow stuff in their yards grow almost exclusively vegetables. And when we talk about edibles in the garden, we're almost always talking about vegetables. And it seems like fruits get sort of relegated to the back burner. I mean, yeah, somebody will have strawberries, but few people are going to have, well, certainly in Illinois, blueberries are not the easiest thing to grow, and other plants. Let's start with some of the fruits that you grow at the Regenstein.
Yeah. It's interesting because so many of the fruiting plants are problem-solving landscape plants. So they would be things like strawberries that make great edgers along a sidewalk or a path. Blueberries are great growing in containers. You can tweak the pH of the soil if you add a peat mix and some pine bark mulch to a potting mix and grow blueberries in containers.
Yeah, but containers, I think blueberries in containers is great. If you want to try to do it in the soil, I've always thought, and tell me if I'm wrong here, that if you're trying to change the pH of your soil, not in a container, but your soil, it's an ongoing battle that you're just going to have to fight all the time.
It's true. And I think choosing varieties very carefully, it's difficult. Lettuce, for instance, likes a pH of 4.5. Well,
really?
In some areas at the Botanic Garden, we have, 8.3 in some of the areas. So we do use sulfur occasionally in the fall and allow that to break down, and that will help mitigate some of the alkaline tendencies of our soils. But for the most part, it's about choosing the right plant for the right place, certainly. But lettuce does just fine, with lots of organic composted cow manure as well. So
I was not aware of that regarding lettuce. Something I did find out. Is that all lettuces across the board generally?
Well, I think that's, they're so shallow rooted. They're so short seasoned in the garden. It's possible to grow a really high quality lettuce crop in a container, in a regular, alkaline clay soil of Chicago. So I hate to deter anyone from trying lettuce. It's just an example that oftentimes gardeners don't have that perfect situation. Nobody has a perfect garden situation. There are roots and trees that are scavenging nutrients. There are poor, soaky, poorly drained areas in our garden, but just work on improving the soil. And I encourage you to try something and try something again. Try a new seed or try a transplant if you can't get a seed to germinate. And just garden on. It's been a wonderful pastime for so many people. I think we have thousands of new gardeners in Chicago due to our stay-at-home orders and things. And so I encourage you to come over to the Botanic Garden. You can pre-register on the website for a parking pass, and that timed entry is required for everybody, all visitors, even if you're a member. And then come over and see what we're planning at the Botanic Garden. We're gardening according to the right timing that you would need in your home garden. So I'll be beginning in mid-March, planting into our cold frames, where we can sort of cover those plants if the evenings drop below 32 degrees. And then about the last week in March, first part of April, we'll be putting out cold tolerant crops, spinach, radish, all the lettuces will come shortly after that, a few peas, carrots, beets, kale. So come out and see what we're doing at the garden.
I have a question for you regarding peas. Last year I had massive, good for you. I had the organic sugar, what, Ann?
Sugar Ann.
Okay.
Yes, from Territorial Seed Company is what I have here. And peas are, the germination is directly related to soil temperatures. So there's so much moisture in our soils in the springtime. And oftentimes people think peas on St. Patrick's Day. Well, things are too wet. I mean, look at what we've got going right now today. The soils are laden with water. So wait until the soils and the temperatures just even out, mitigate a little bit, and you'll have a much better germination rate in the ground. But the
problem is people, and me. I panic because I know peas, they want cool weather. You want to get them in early. You don't want to miss the window of opportunity. So you're saying it's a little tricky. You've got to wait till the soil is warmed a little bit and it's a little bit drier, but you can't wait too long because if you get into the warm weather, then they're not going to thrive.
That's totally true, Mike. And another trick is inoculate those pea seeds or plants. It's just a mycorrhizae that you can dust on the pea seed. I even pour it into the seed packet, and you can find that at Johnny's Selected Seed or one of the nice seed houses online. And then
what does that do? What does that do? What do the mycorrhizae do?
It doesn't necessarily jumpstart the germination process, but it jumpstarts the soil biology. And so it gets things going, and it creates the nutrients that plants need to start their germination. So if those peas...
You got me going here because peas are already a legume. They're already fixing nitrogen in the soil.
Totally.
And so the mycorrhizae that you add, are they augmenting that?
Absolutely. And so they are the nitrogen fixers that will fix to the root system. You can see the nodules of nitrogen that are fixed, and the soil biology has something to do with that. And so it's important. You don't have to inoculate your pea seeds, but wait until that sweet spot in the spring when the soils are not too wet and things dry out. If you plant peas about the 23rd of April, between the 15th and the 23rd of April, you kind of try to outfox that big spring deluge that we usually have. It's all about timing with vegetable growing. And so a gardener picks the right day and the right conditions. Crumble a handful of soil in your hand, and then, planting depth really matters. And then making sure that the peas are kept moist, but that the water drains away from the pea seed. I wrote an article for Fine Gardening magazine about peas, and it's an in-depth look at all the varietals that we like at the Botanic Garden, and you can read that up. I don't remember what year it was. It was several years back, but if you Google Fine Gardening, you should be able to find it there. I'm liking these Territorial Seed Company peas and Johnny's Selected Seed, and there are so many beautiful heirloom seeds. We're going to grow a purple potted snow pea this year that I think is from Seed Savers Exchange, which I'm really excited about growing. Pea diversity is incredible, and they are so beneficial to our soils, and make get things ready for that following crop, like a tomato or a heavy feeding brassica. So you take your peas
And they
out, they're
taste
finished,
good
and then you
too.
can, and they taste delicious. There's nothing like fresh peas from the garden.
I know. I
Certainly.
mean, that's the thing. Last year we had issues with something chomping down on the peas as they were coming up. Is there something that I need to be aware of in getting the plants to a viable stage?
Well, if you garden in raised beds, that's the beauty of being able to
That's what
throw
Kathy
over
Street just wrote. Kathy Street said try peas in containers, and maybe that's
totally.
what we need to do.
Yeah, I like to think about peas as being the spiller element in a container garden. It softens the edge of the container, and they're wonderful in containers. The thing to be careful of is read the seed packet and make sure that the pea is either a bush type or a climbing type, and plan your
What
trellising
else is
system
there?
accordingly. So,
Oh, I
well,
see.
just
Okay.
if you're only going to
Yeah.
grow in the ground, we sometimes plant peas about 4 inches apart, and they climb on each other. And so they're planted in rows, and then there's a little bit of distance between the next set of pea rows, and they support each other. And you could also put in some pea staking, which is just a little dogwood or a few willow branches or something for the peas to climb on. They have tendrils that will twine around very narrow fishing line width netting. So they won't automatically crawl on a metal tutor. You have to coax them onto something
Yeah,
that they can
right. They
use.
they
Yeah.
need to grab onto something, and
Yeah.
that was one of the issues
Exactly.
we were having last year. Say, hey, listen, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Pea Talk here on the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki.
Yeah.
But that's okay, because sometimes I love it when we go down
Yeah.
these rabbit holes with specific
Yeah.
vegetables, because sometimes folks have had this, and I've had the problem the last couple of years. My pea crop has not been good, and I've been trying to figure out the best way to get them going. And you've helped a little bit. And maybe go ahead, Lisa. You were going to say.
One other suggestion is if you have trouble germinating outside in soils, try rolling up a few peas in a paper towel and getting them to sprout indoors. Just keeping them moist inside a plastic bag and a paper towel, and then planting those tiny little starts.
Yeah.
Once they root, plant those out very gently and carefully in the soil. That's another great way to start. And then I will maybe you could connect with the Botanic Garden or me at about the middle of April, and we'll talk about how we're doing as far as perfect pea planting weather.
Perfect peas. All right. That's the name of
Perfect peas
Well,
planting.
there's no perfection.
perfect
Yeah,
peas
there's no
planted.
perfection in gardening, that's for sure. And we're just glad for the small things, like we were all last year. That's for sure.
Yeah, and folks need to know that I was going to talk about this, but just briefly, last year was weird because obviously, right at this time, the pandemic was starting. We didn't really know what to do. We shut down everything. So you even had to sort of abandon the spring crop. But as you told me, by the end of the season, you
Yeah.
were ramped up and you were just turning out things. You met all your production quotas.
Well, and I think, we are a farm for Windy City Harvest. So any of the produce that is produced at the fruit and vegetable garden helps meet the Farm on Ogden's Windy City Harvest production quota.
Yeah.
So we don't have a quota at the garden, but because it's organically grown, we are very, we're part of that work. And so that they have all kinds of production farms across the city.
And you're one of
15
them,
to be.
obviously.
And we're one of those.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so we did go the spring season last year, because we were closed. And what the revelation has been that we are really gardening for the public. We're really, we're gardening for people, and we want to motivate and inspire people to find the joys of gardening and realize, our mission is that all life depends on plants, and that is is, the revelation, I think, after a year like last year. We were so happy to reopen, and we'll be open this year. We had to let some of the small things go. Like the weeds. We had to live with some of the weeds. We missed our volunteers. We missed them greatly. We missed the camaraderie. We missed all of their contributions to the garden.
And they're going to be back this year, and I need to stop just for a second because we need to break. But I want to go into that a little bit and about how you work with folks, and that's what you're all about. And as you said, you're gardening for the public, which is the title of the blog post I wrote. You should see the interview I did with Lisa Hilgenberg. She is the manager of the Regenstein Fruit and Vegetable Garden at the Chicago Botanic Garden. When you come back, you're going to enjoy something that we've got coming up, Elisa. I think you'll find it a lot of fun. It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki, and we will be right back.
At this time of year, we spend a lot of time indoors with our plants, so help them thrive. The plants you're viewing were treated with Leafzyme, a foliage spray designed to activate beneficial microbes already present on the leaves. A spritz every few weeks promotes growth-enhancing microorganisms that process dust and other particles into nutrition that indoor plants can absorb through their leaves for beautiful and vigorous growth. Go to blazing-star.com and check out their BioGarden line for home gardeners.
From small boat fishermen to your dinner table with safe, free, no-contact delivery, Sitka Salmon Shares brings premium wild Alaska seafood to your door. They're a community-supported fishery offering shares just like your local CSA. All fish is wild-caught in season with respect for the limits of the ocean. Line-caught and traceable to their fleet. Use promo code NOVAC25 for $25 off the first month of a share. Go to sitkasalmonshares.com/NOWAK.
Hello from Happy Leaf. This is BJ Miller, the horticulturist here on staff. The best way we can help you be successful with indoor gardening is to provide you with a really great grow light. There are a lot of choices on the market, and it can be extremely confusing to decide what you need. Our goal here at Happy Leaf is to provide you with a light that lasts a very long time and makes your plants really happy. We have several satisfied customers, including our friends Mike Nowak and Peggy Malecki, because we have specifically designed a light that is versatile, it's very effective, and it is extremely simple to use. Our lights are perfect for seed starting, but you can do so much more, especially these months of the winter. You can supply yourself with your own leafy greens and herbs, grow lots of different types of vegetables, keep your small fruit trees thriving, and your houseplants will think you've sent them for a day at the spa.
And speaking of Happy Leaf, this is the time of year when you're getting your seedlings in there, and this is when Peggy and I have a lot of fun because those Happy Leaf LEDs are just fantastic for getting your seeds started.
Yeah.
And by the way, Peggy, I'm going to let you take it away here because I think, as I mentioned, Lisa Hilgenberg is going to enjoy what we're going to show right now.
Yeah, and we hope that in the past few weeks you've enjoyed watching the trailers for the 10th annual One Earth Film Festival as much as we have. So today's trailer is totally relevant for the day because plant-based expert Elysabeth Alfano is going to be joining us after 10 a.m. and you'll see then how this all ties together. But even if you're not a fan of eating mushrooms, check out the fabulous photography in Fantastic Fungi.
My mission is to discover the language of nature, and I believe nature is intelligent.
There is a world under the earth, full of magic and mystery. It holds the consciousness of nature's connection to all living things.
You know, these mushrooms, they can heal you, they can feed you, they can kill you.
It's not like a vegetable, and it's not like an animal, but it's somewhere in between.
They support life, they convert life.
As you're walking through, it's about 300 miles of fungi under every footstep that you take, and that's all over the world.
The bulk of the organism is growing underground, and it's composed of these long threads called a mycelium.
Almost everyone knows about the computer internet. The mycelium shares the same network design.
It's amazing what we don't know about mushrooms. They really are a frontier of knowledge.
You can filter water
You can create medicinal compounds almost on demand.
They have incredible capacity to make things change very quickly. So I am super hopeful.
The psychedelic members of the mushroom kingdom are fascinating.
I have been a guide for around 350 psilocybin sessions.
The most glorious part was that it made me feel more comfortable with living because you're not afraid of dying.
We need to have a paradigm shift in our consciousness. What will it take to achieve that?
We can heal the planet. We can build the future. And our world is fantastic.
Well, not necessarily this fall, but at the One Earth Film Festival, which opens this Friday, March 5th, and runs through the 14th, with the 2021 season launch party on Friday at 6:30 p.m. That's this Friday. Unless otherwise indicated, all films are free with a suggested $8 donation. For more information, go to oneearthfilmfest.org. And I think... I don't know. That's not Basil. That's me, I think, barking back at me. The One Earth Film Festival, 10 years of inspiring change. Arf, arf, arf.
No, that's not Basil. He's totally quiet right now.
Okay, good. Excuse me. Oh, that's me. That's just me barking there. Welcome back to the Mike Nowak.
I'm getting feedback. I am hearing feedback, though.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit coming from Lisa's, but when she starts talking, I don't think there'll be an issue here. Don't worry about it, Lisa. We're good to go. Lisa
Okay.
Hilgenberg from the Chicago Botanic Garden. And we were talking about, and by the way, how cool is that film? Fantastic. Fungi. What do you say, fungi or fungi?
Fungi.
She says fungi.
Fungi. I say both. We should ask our. We have a. Dr. Mueller at the Botanic Garden is one of the world's foremost fungi experts, and so I think he would say fungi. Yeah, absolutely.
That's somebody we need to have on the show here. I think that would be a lot of fun. And later today, we're going to be talking about some fungi that were discovered in the cauldrons in Yellowstone National Park. NASA was looking for this to help feed colonizers of space, and then now we might be turning them into hamburgers, okay? Meatless hamburgers. So go figure. And we'll be talking to Elysabeth Alfano about that later on. It's just very, very cool. But right now we're talking about about growing other stuff, fruits and vegetables. As you mentioned, last year you didn't have as many people. This year it's different. We know people can come. They can come to the garden. We're still masking. We're still social distancing. But are you going to be able to work with volunteers this year?
We are going to be able to work with volunteers with approval, for essential work. So we have been able to have the beekeepers come to check on our hives. We have 8 hives at the fruit and vegetable garden. And so they are on a very limited basis able to work with, restrictions, of course. We're following CDC protocols and other public health officials' recommendations very closely, stringently, for the safety of the visitors, but also the staff. But yes, we will be welcoming back some volunteers.
Which
is great. That camaraderie is a big part of our work, and we get the work done because of the help of those many volunteers. I mean, there are well over 1,000 volunteers that work at the Botanic Garden, and that's why it's so beautiful. And so I think last year, just having to forego some of those weeds and some of that fine tuning, the deadheading, was difficult for us as horticulturalists, because oftentimes we're perfectionists and we had to realize, and pick our battles. We were making sure that things were productive. That was our focus at the Fruit and Vegetable Garden, rather than that fine tuning and that perfectionistic sort of approach.
Well, I'm going to show some photos here in a second about that. I mean, that's the thing about the Botanic Garden. It's so different from everybody else's garden. If I got weeds in there, I look at them, I go, okay. I'll get to you at
I
some
look at my
point.
creeping Charlie and go, oh, ground cover.
Yeah, exactly. But you guys, you're a public garden. And you have to do. It has to look
Yeah.
good. That's part of
Yeah.
the mission. Let's take a look at this. This is interesting. I was trying to figure out what this tool is. It looks like a picture frame that you've put into the garden. What is that, Lisa?
That's called a broad fork. It has 8 tines. They're very large, like fingers, and a metal bar that I'm stepping on across the middle. And then there are 2 ash handles that I'm pulling down on. So basically, soil is made of 4 components, and one of those components is air. And our soils should have 25% air, which is so hard to believe in Chicago, isn't it, when we pick up
Yeah.
that mucky clay soil? So this is basically a big aerator. It's a hand tool that you can, you work backwards and you rock it back and forth. You stick it in about 8 inches and then you push down on those handles and it lifts the soil just enough so that the air is incorporated. It's also good for incorporating, leaf mulch or compost to add nutrients to the soil. So it's a way of eliminating tilling. It's a very low till method of caring for soils. And then the most important part of that, I think, is that we don't walk on those soils again. So after we have aerated them with a broad fork like this, we don't step on those soils again. We use a plywood board to distribute our weight evenly so that we're really worried about compaction and we're taking care that small little plant roots have the space to grow deeply into the ground. And if a home gardener would like to just use a pitchfork, you can get that same effect. This tool the broad fork is on the market in garden centers and through Johnny Selected Seed is where I got mine.
Yeah,
they have a great, yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry, they have a great
Well,
one.
I was going to say, if in my class, which is the first weekend in April on Saturday, organic vegetable gardening in spring, we're going to talk in-depthly about soil preparation and soil testing and choosing the right site for a vegetable garden, the nuts and bolts of vegetable gardening and beyond. So we'll be talking about variety selection and tips and tricks for the whole season, but it will be focused on getting your garden up and running for spring.
So
it's actually a series of classes. I'm sorry, Mike.
No, go ahead.
It's spring, summer, and fall, and so those will be done. For sure, the spring will be done virtually, and that information is on chicagobotanic.org.
Yeah, and you can go to MikeNowak.net, and I've got the link there too, specifically to Lisa's class. If you want to, we'll have the Nowak bump by the end of the day, and people will be signing up.
Yeah, we put it up in social too.
Yeah, and just the other week we were talking to Charlie Nardozzi about his new book. No dig gardening, and he's talking about what you're talking about, which is if you're going to do anything to the soil, please do it gently. You folks who have rototillers and you religiously get out there and pulverize your soil each spring and summer, stop doing that. Just stop it. You're messing with the soil food web, and this is
the mycelium.
Exactly what you're trying to do there, Lisa, is aerate the soil as gently as possible, right?
We are, exactly. And after working backwards and using that broad fork, then we're just using a hard rake to kind of hammer out some of the larger clumps. And we work these beds very, very hard, spring, summer, and fall, year after year after year. And so my main mission is to create high quality soils. And that is part of a whole process of working with Mother Nature and using sort of preventative measures. And there's a picture of our entrance bed last year. That was a beautiful planting. We had a purple pepper called Pinot Noir, which I believe was the Ball Seed product, who is a wonderful partner. They have a great line of vegetables. Burpee and Pan American Seed has some incredible breeding. And so we're happy to plant those plants. We had a red kale, and there was another pepper called Bianca, which was a white bell pepper that was planted along with an upright marigold, Tagetes erecta, African marigold, and that's called vanilla. So there's this bed next year will be interesting. It is for spring. It's going to be a mixed planting.
When you say
so
next year, do you mean 2021
I'm sorry.
or 2021?
I
Right?
do. No,
Okay.
I mean 2021. So
Yeah.
coming, I
This year.
should recognize it's just in 3 or 4 weeks. We will be planting a mixed planting. So we're foregoing the rows and we're going to mix things up and plant kale and pansies and a soft mixed tapestry for spring. So I hope you'll come over and
But
have
this
a
is
look.
where I look at this and I say, "Oh, that's way too neat for anything that I'm doing in my yard." But that's okay. I get it. I completely
It's not
understand.
your yard.
Yeah, and here's another. What have we got here, Lisa?
Ooh.
That is an heirloom tomato display, and we've planted that with a large zinnia called Envy. And I believe there was an upright basil, emerald everleaf basil, which just keeps on producing foliage. You
Which
can
which
pinch
basil is
and
it?
nip, and emerald everleaf basil, which again is a Pan-American product. They're breeding, and emerald everleaf basil. It's disease resistant and a plant that is so prolific in the garden. It was a 2-foot tall plant.
I think what's
This was
interesting, you've got so plants so close to the tomatoes. I
Yeah.
think some people would say,
Yeah.
"Oh no, you can't do that. They need more air."
Totally. Totally. And they do. And so when I'm planting some of these beds, I'm thinking about how this is going to look when the tomato is a foot tall. And we need to plant things in sort of a different way, especially in some of these larger display beds like this bed is. I think, as these plants grow, this is where the volunteers would have, in a normal year, been able to deadhead and nip the zinnia back away from the tomatoes. We had lots of production regardless. And this year, the tomatoes it's going to be really fun. We're going to have tomatoes on one side of the path that are heirloom tomatoes, and the other side of the path will be hybrid tomatoes. I have a list of those. Excuse me. We're going to plant Pan Am Marzana, Midnight Snack, and Candyland Red as the hybrid tomatoes. And then, the whole full slate of heirloom tomatoes, which is something to celebrate, really. One of every color, every shape, every type. Black, yellow, green, DeJohnalle's Golden Girl, which is a beautiful orange plum tomato. Lots of different Oxheart tomatoes. So that's always something that's exciting to look forward to for August.
I'm looking at a comment from Bruce. He says, "That cloud looks like a dog head." Bruce, focus on the plants, okay? Focus. We're talking about the plants, not the dog head.
Talking tomatoes, Bruce.
All right. And speaking of fruits and vegetables, especially fruits here, what have we got? And I'm sorry, your buddy at the garden sent me these, and I realized that I hadn't tried them out on you. So you're seeing these probably for the first time right now, Lisa.
Yes, and I can't clear my screen. I see myself in the mirror.
Uh-oh.
So I
Oh,
am
no.
thinking that I see one little leaf on the side, and I think that's a fig.
Yes.
So
Very
it's like
good.
we have an amazing collection of figs that we grow in containers because many of them are not tolerant to our cold weather in Chicago, our cold winters. But we have a collection that is, 15 or 16 different fig cultivars, which is amazing. This is the small space garden, and you can see in the distance we have some peas climbing up, and probably now by summer it's beans climbing up on those 2 tours behind the fig plant. Figs are a really fun, bold foliage landscape plant. They're fun to have out in containers. I've got one cultivar, Chicago Hardy, that does stay out for the winter, but I haven't seen any production on it because it just, by the time I cut it back after the winter, it just takes so long for it to regrow, and it just doesn't produce in our shorter season.
Yeah, they're tough. It's
They
tough.
are
And
tough.
a lot of people try, which is so fun to watch people,
Yep.
manipulating their plant, and they bring it indoors, or they shelter it, or they just work really hard. I would love to get an avocado out of my avocado plant, which is 7
Yeah.
feet tall, but that's not going to happen either.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's do
Yeah.
one more here, and this looks like one of your
okra.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
fabulous
Yeah, this
okra
is
plant.
Yeah, beautiful red burgundy okra, which is an heirloom okra. It's related to hibiscus, and you can see that gorgeous flower
Yep.
there. It's one of the most ornamental plants in the garden. It's a very unique plant to eat and to use. I have made all kinds of crafting projects. It's a great dried flower. It's a plant that we can really credit African Americans for bringing to this country, and it's a beautiful plant that we like to grow. I think I had 6 or 8 cultivars of okra last year, and I believe we have okra in the entrance bed for summer in late May at the Regenstein Fruit and Vegetable Garden.
Yeah, okra is a plant that I think is really beautiful. Am I likely to cook it? Maybe, but it is a beautiful.
Well,
we've got some okra
yeah.
seed head here. They're delightful when they dry out.
Mhm.
They're very ornamental. It's really really cool stuff.
Yeah. And Lisa,
Yeah.
I think you've used them in wreaths at the garden.
I have. If you slit the seed pod with a box cutter or a scissors or a knife, it will peel open and expose the seed, and it dries to this beautiful brown and white pod, and they're spectacular. And actually, I think I still have that in my garage somewhere or in my basement. And if the mice haven't gotten to it yet, but I made a big wreath out of all the okra. Okra is also called lady's fingers, and so that's the ideal size to harvest okra for eating. It has a mucilaginous quality when we cook it into gumbos and stews, and so it's sought after for those characteristics. But if it becomes overgrown in your garden, clip the whole seed head off and use it in your Thanksgiving Day arrangement, or slit the seed pods and dry it that way. So it's a very architectural plant. I think it's a beautiful plant that Northerners don't grow very often, and it adds a lot to our garden. There are smaller cultivars too that are on the marketplace. So read carefully as you're perusing seed catalogs this year.
All right, we have just a few minutes left. So for some practical advice for folks living in the Midwest who are looking out, it's the last day of February today. So we think March as growing season, but really in terms of growing season, it's mostly indoor growing season right now, isn't it?
It is. It's indoor growing season. And so it's almost time to start tomatoes. A few more weeks, I think, before you start tomatoes. I like to plant my tomatoes out about June 7th, so pretty late. And the nighttime temperatures have really moderated, and I can trust the fact that things aren't going to go below 55 degrees at night. And that's what tomatoes like. And so if we back out of the garden math and figure tomatoes are planted out at 8-week starts, so that would be, all of April and May would be, they would be growing. They can start to harden off mid-May, be brought in and outside. But that puts us at the end of March, early April to start those seeds inside.
Yeah.
We plant tomatoes at 8-week starts. So that's sort of a long way of working through that garden math problem. If I was starting seeds in the basement, which I should be doing right now, I would be planting some of the small salad greens. It's something interesting. There are so many really nutritious, interesting plants like vit or corn salad. Mosh is another name for that.
Mosh, yeah.
Exactly. Tatsoi, mustards, some of the things you can't find in grocery stores. Don't you want to eat those things? I mean, it's so easy.
Yeah.
Mizuna, delicious. I have my
Gesundheit.
favorite lettuce, black-seeded Simpson, which is just a wonderful lettuce. It's very early producing. And so I would grab a pack of black-seeded Simpson. It's an open pollinated lettuce. It adds great interest in the garden, chartreuse color. Lettuces generally can be multi-sowed, so you have a whole bowl of lettuce, or they could be grown in individual cell packs and then transplanted to grow just a single head of lettuce. This is a 40 or 50-day crop. If you read the back of the pack, it says 40 days to maturity. Make sure to check the expiration date on seed packets, although different varieties have different viabilities. So seeds last for a length of time if they're stored properly. Tomatoes can last for 6 years or so if they're stored properly. Onion, parsnip, lettuce, those would be shorter lived seeds, and you might want to start with a fresh pack.
And before we let you go, the other question I will ask, and I think I already know the answer to this one, is, obviously we start seeds indoors. In terms of your soil, I'm going to guess you're going to tell people, leave it alone for the moment and just let Mother Nature do her thing.
Outside. Yeah, I think that's true. I think there's a little bit of cleanup, certainly that can be done. We can make things worse. We can exacerbate problems in the soil, compaction, some of those things if we step on soil now when it's so wet. So do wait. You can tiptoe around. Your arm was 2 feet in, so you can certainly reach to weed. The key with weeding is early and often. So as soon as you see those weeds start to pop up, get after that. But I would wait to do bed prep. And that's why we really, we teach that fall bed prep is just the way to go. Things are ready for you in the spring when you come to the vegetable garden. But once things warm up, and hopefully they will, about second week in April, we'll be planting both direct sowing in the garden as well as transplanting.
Well, I think it's important to tell people, especially those in our area who are watching us, that we're still in the Midwest. It's still March 1st, all right, which means we've got a lot of time to go, and we get especially in the last couple of weeks, because we had all that snow, we had brutal cold.
Yeah.
I mean, and as folks in other parts of the country know, all the way down to Texas. I was looking at the map. We'll be talking to meteorologist Rick DiMaio, all the way into Mexico. Some of that cold weather went down there. And so people get antsy and they say, oh, I got to get out and garden. And as you said, you can do more damage to your soil by tromping around on it. And once you compact it, boy, it's really hard to uncompact soil, isn't it?
It's true. Absolutely. It's hard to undo those bad habits. And so it's possible to grow a few things in containers, and it's possible to start. It's all about the right timing for vegetable gardening, as I think I keep saying. So, radish and spinach would be those that would be first direct sown in the vegetable garden. And you can do that right along the edge, so you're not clambering into the middle of your garden. You can plant a row of radish, once a week or something, beginning at the end of March. Spinach and radish germinate at 38-degree soils, so that's no problem. Go for it. And then add, it's all about frost tolerance. And I think in that class, I'll give you a variety list of the best varieties. They're regionally adapted to withstand different temperatures. So it's all about choosing the right cultivar and then picking the right time. And so if you choose frost-tolerant plants, you'll have better success. The thin-leafed plants, carrot, that fine foliage, Swiss chard, lettuce, you need to wait a little bit longer, almost till May 1st for those types of plants. Are not quite as frost tolerant as some of the others. And a dip below into that 28-degree range, and you can lose some of those early spring vegetable starts. So it's important. Potatoes too. Wait for potatoes until May 1st is typically what I say for potatoes.
Actually, I had some potatoes that I did not harvest, and one of the things I've seen over the years is sometimes you'll get the crop come back the next year, and so I'm cheating a little bit just to see if I can get some of those tomatoes, or I'm sorry, not tomatoes, potatoes.
Yeah. Hopefully the soil's not too wet.
Yeah. Well, unless they just all rotted, in which case I start over again.
Potatoes have all kinds of disease issues, and so I think the cleanup of potato from prior years is very, very important,
Oh,
so that
great.
your whole new crop
So-
isn't taken down. I think that's part of the problem
Oh,
of
well.
potato through history. Yeah.
Although I did have success a couple of years ago where I missed them. I missed some of the extra potatoes.
Yeah.
And they came up, and it was a
Yeah.
fabulous crop. And I was like,
Good.
okay, yeah. So I
Well,
didn't,
good,
I
you're
didn't have
lucky.
those issues. Yeah, I am lucky. All right, so I'll get rid of the other ones. Lisa Hilgenberg, thank you so much. Go to my website, MikeNovak.net, or you can go to ChicagoBotanic.org /adult_education, and you can find it. Or I've got the link right to Lisa's class on April 3rd, Organic Vegetable Garden in spring. You sign up now is what I would say, and good luck this year.
Sign up early.
Waiting to see what happens with 2021. I think it's going to be a fabulous year.
Thank you so much, Mike and Peggy. It's great to be with you, and we'll see you at the Botanic Garden.
You betcha. All
Great.
right.
Thank you.
It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. We're going to be right back with fungi and other non-meat edibles.
When I'm with an older tree, and there's just something about it that draws you to it. It's similar to the ocean, draws you to it. And when I see a big tree and I'm gonna climb it, I enjoy that moment, and I'll give the tree a big old hug. My name's Chase Ferris. I work out of the Clackamas office just outside Portland, Oregon. I've been with Bartlett Tree Experts since October of 2016, and I'm a climber. I was kind of surprised and taken back by the quality of equipment and the amount of effort that goes into keeping everyone safe and keeping the jobs productive and making sure that you are progressing every day. And I enjoy that because I like to learn. I like the Raptor, and we use it quite a bit out on the West Coast. Our trees are pretty tall, and the Raptor is great for saving energy, allowing you to get into the canopy with minimal physical exertion so that you're fresh and ready to climb and do what you need to do, when you're 65, 70 feet up or higher. So at my office, I feel like you could take just about anyone, put a crew together, and send them out to a job and have it be successful. And that has to do with trusting the people you work with, feeling safe around them, and knowing their strengths and weaknesses. Every tree needs a champion.
You have the ability to give your soil a superpower. It's called composting. If you don't have a backyard, you need to contact Collective Resource Compost. CRC has diverted 7,000 tons of food scraps since 2010. They bring you a fresh 5-gallon bucket or a 32-gallon neighbor tote with each pickup. You fill it with organic matter from your kitchen, they swap it out and get it to a commercial composting operation. Fight climate change. Go to collectiveresource.us.
Welcome to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Green, gardening, and environment radio with just a soupçon of humor. Or is that a dash?
Brought to you by Bartlett Tree Experts. Every tree needs a champion. Go to bartlett.com.
Here they are again, Peggy Malecki and Mike Nowak.
All I need is good food to eat and make me healthy, wealthy, wide awake. Lettuce, tomatoes, rutabaga. What about those sweet potatoes? All I need is good food to eat. All I need is good food to eat. All I need is good tools to make me music, porches, lawn serene.
And welcome back to the show. I can see our next guest. She's waiting there in the wings, and she's even dancing to the music. Just calm down there, Elizabeth. Calm down. We'll be right with you in just a second. The Evanston Environmental Association's Wild and Scenic Film Festival goes virtual this March, so you can attend from the comfort of your home. This year's films include the story of the first African-American male to complete the Triple Crown of hiking. Last week, we determined that was the Appalachian Trail, the Continental Trail in the Rockies, and the Pacific
Crest Trail.
Pacific
Crest Trail.
Pacific Crest Trail. Also, you'll see how church forests in Ethiopia protect the biodiversity of old-growth forests, and you'll see the story of one community's fight to keep an oil refinery closed after an explosion. Now, this special event happens on 2 nights in March. the 19th and the 26th, 6:30 to 9 p.m. Tickets are available starting at $10. All proceeds support the Evanston Ecology Center, good friends of the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki, and we're happy to be good friends of theirs too. For more information and to register, visit in Evanston environment.org/filmfest. And I say environment that way, Elysabeth Alfano, because that's my impression of Bill Curtis. Environment.
Okay, it's a good start. I like it. I see where you're going with that.
Environment. I'm just going to have
morning.
him come on the show someday and just say that for a half an hour. Environment.
I've interviewed him actually. He's an interesting cat. He's like got one foot in the climate change world and he's got one foot out of it. So
well, you're that way because he's raising beef and he's doing it grass-fed beef. So as you say, he's kind of splitting the difference right now. So that's very interesting. Yeah, and I've had him on the show too. So Chicago guy, you can't.
Yes.
Yeah, every time you turn around at an environmental meeting in Chicago, you trip over one of his voiceovers for a video or a film. So I'm jealous. I'm just saying that because I'm jealous. I just want, hey, all you folks doing those films, give me a holler. I can say environment as well. Okay. Hey, welcome back to the show. Look who's here. It's Elysabeth Alfano. Our friend, and she is, as we discovered last time you were on the show, you adopted a new name, which was the Plant-Based Boss. I don't know if you remember that.
It.
Yeah.
Oh, well, then I got to tell you, I am doubly plant-based boss today because right here on the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki, I am giving you breaking news that happened just about 10 minutes ago.
Oh, right. What?
Oh my gosh, I've been working on this for so long, and so here I am breaking the news. VegTech, the global vegan impact and innovation index, is now live. So this is a financial tool like all indices, and it tracks the list of VegTech companies. And a VegTech company is defined as companies that are actively innovating to get animals out of the food supply chain and product supply chain for the benefit of the environment and, of course, our health and our healthcare system and animals. And, the list is actually sort of long. So VegTech market is reflected by this VegTech index. And so it's this Global Vegan Impact and Innovation Index. If you would like more information about the currently 21 companies in the index, this index, again, reflecting the health and investability of VegTech, of these companies that are innovating to get animals out of the supply chain for the betterment of people, the environment, and, of course, animals. So if you want more information on that, you can go to vegtechindex.com. So much work. It's up. It's live.
Is that different from what I see on your program where you have the ticker tape scrolling across the top, or is that related to that?
That is related to that. So in addition to the index, because we're all ADD and we like to see things bop around and flash around, and I've got a live ticker. And so the financial ticker runs across my website, and it has all 21 companies on that ticker. So you can see the live daily update. And then I, with my partner, Sasha Goodman, whom I could not have done this without him, we give a monthly report, and we show the growth and health of the index and talk about the changes that happen every month within this VegTech index. But if you want daily updates, that ticker is there every day on the Plant-Based Business Hour. So if you need that website, it's elizabethalfano.com/PBH. But it's all there, folks. It's all there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have.
And you've got. I was going to add, in addition to the Plant-Based Business Hour, I like your weekly roundup, where you've got the Plant-Based Minute.
Yes, I do the plant-based business. I'm sort of busy. I do the plant-based business minute, which I break down the top 3 headlines each in a minute or less every week. And we're going to talk about some headlines today We got a good one. It's not quite Bill Curtis, but it is Bill Gates. So, you know.
Right. Well, wait a second. Bill Gates has a little more money than Bill Curtis.
Yeah.
And
just a tad.
Yeah.
And we hold that mug up because one of our listeners wants to see the mug. She loves it.
I can find you the name. Oh, shoot. It's this company, and all they do is mugs like this that have beautiful animals and fields and flowers and bees and birds and bears and things. I don't want to spill my coffee on myself.
No, don't do especially don't do it on the microphone.
I'm so tired, having pulled many all-nighters.
And
to get this Veg Tech Index up. So, but I will give you this.
But it was worth
later.
Okay,
and
we'll let you know, Sarah.
And we got to apologize because we make her come on a Sunday morning, and she's in the Pacific, on the coast there, so it's 2 hours earlier there. So you're up before 8 a.m. getting ready to do live streaming here. So thank you so much for doing that. It's always a pleasure to have you here. So yeah, let's go to Bill Gates. You sent us some
Bill Gates.
He was on 60 Minutes talking about, and I got to tell you something. One of the things I did after you sent me the link to 60 Minutes, and you can click on a short version of it if you go to my blog, MikeNowak.net, and go to this week's show. I went online and I went to a search engine and I typed in Bill Gates on meat, and the first page was filled. It was filled with right-wing attacks on Bill Gates.
Yes, I know.
And it's it's amazing. It's just insane. It's that and a lot of them were Twitter memes that you put a piece of plastic on a plate. This is what Bill Gates wants us to eat. And it was just so mean-spirited and kind of stupid, actually, but I learned something that I wasn't aware of the backlash to this. So there is a huge backlash to anybody who's trying to get out of meat-based eating, isn't there?
Well, you've got two things going on. You've got a backlash to Bill Gates himself. Now, it's a backlash I personally don't understand, but it's a backlash through the coronavirus. There was this rumor. I don't even want to talk about it because it's so, not accurate. But a lot of people think that he somehow created coronavirus to make money off of it. We're not even going there.
Again, more dumb stuff. Yeah.
That's like really dopey. So then anything. So sorry, Peggy. Anything Bill likes, and so if he's talking about clean energy, or if he's talking about sustainable food supply system, or whatever he's talking about, they're there to say like eating plastic or doing jumping jacks is wrong. Whatever they're saying. So whatever, I don't know. Yeah. But anyway, so Bill Gates, he's on 60 Minutes, which I still like as a show. I mean, I don't watch it that much, but it's been around for a long time.
It is still very popular and very influential. Yes. So if you're on 60 Minutes with Anderson Cooper, you're doing something right.
Right. And which is why I love this, because Bill Gates is not a perfect messenger here, not just because he's controversial unnecessarily, but also because he himself understands it, but he doesn't totally walk the talk. So, he takes Anderson Cooper to a burger bar to talk about let's pull out the meat and think about the environment. So, he himself is not perfect. And I love that because he represents, not his gazillions, but his imperfection represents the rest of us, because who walks through this life perfectly? So a lot of people are reducing their meat intake and they're getting to Meatless Mondays and this kind of thing, but they're not drawing a hard and fast line. So I thought in that way he was a very approachable messenger, which I thought was, fine and fun. So he was talking about some of the destructive qualities of animal agriculture on the environment and that long-term impact. He was also talking about some of the innovations that are coming. Again, we're talking about veg tech, the innovations in this space to get animals out of the supply chain for the betterment of people, the planet, and animals. And one of the companies that he talked about that are so innovative are right in Chicago. I love Thomas Jonas, the CEO of Nature's Find. They're in Back of the Yards, Chicago, South Side. They do an incredible job of creating food from microbes. I'll let you digest that for a second, then I can go into detail if you want.
Well,
fermented microbes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, biomass fermentation from fermented microbes.
Well, I put a quote up here on the blog. It's a company that develops microbe-based products for meat substitutes, founded in 2012, based in Chicago. And believe me, you have to come on our show from the West Coast to tell me about the companies in Chicago that are doing things like this. I wasn't aware of this.
Yeah.
The company has been funded by a series of federal agencies in the United States, the National Science Foundation, the Department of Agriculture. Department of Ag, they're not exactly left-wing crazies. Environmental Protection Agency, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, which was investigating microbes in Yellowstone in the pools there. I mean, it's nuts how this all came to be.
It's colossal. Yeah. So Thomas was working with NASA, and in doing this research project in the pools of Yellowstone, I believe, he discovered these microbes and decided, oh, this is really revolutionary. And here's why. I'm grossly paraphrasing, but if you imagine that you have a cow and that cow is going to produce food in about a year and a half, and in that year and a half, you're giving it land, you're giving it water, you're giving it time, you're cutting down trees to grow grains. Now, these trees usually would pull carbon from the air, right? Which would be a good thing for us as we worry about climate change. But they can't do that because we've cut them down and we've grown grains. Now, these grains have fiber and they have protein, everything we need. Do we give these grains to people? No, we give them to animals, and then animals take time, water, land. And then so you have this inefficiency going on. Now, he can create, by fermenting microbes, he can create the same amount of meat as a cow makes in a year and a half in 4 hours. So you're talking about getting rid of food insecurity. You're talking about not wasting land, water, and time. So these resources, which are going to become very expensive as climate change increases and you have less arable land. So not only are we getting more people on the planet, 7.6 billion going to 9.8 billion, according to the UN by 2050. So you're getting a third more people on the planet. But you're not getting more land, and you're not getting more water. In addition, you're losing land because of climate change. There's less arable, meaning farmable land. So you think, well, hey, I don't have to worry about the planet and people, as gross generalization here, because I can make the same amount of food in 4 hours that I used to make
the same
in an hour in a year and a half. Yes, because microbes very high in protein. Let me give a huge clarification here. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert. Animals do not create protein. I know you've been fed to think that protein comes from animals. It does not. Humans and animals do not create protein. They both get their protein from plants or microbes. Only plants or microbes on the planet actually make the protein. Now, you can get protein by eating plants, or you can get protein by eating the animal that ate the plant. But who wants to do the middleman, because it's so wasteful in time, water.
Well, in the same way that animals get energy from the sun, it's via plants. Because
of course,
the plants are the ones that are making that happen. This is interesting. I found this. This is a Wikipedia entry about this. The CSO co-founder and CSO Mark Kozabal, is that how you pronounce his name? Do you know? He was on a NASA-funded extreme environment study of life that uncovered the FY protein derived from a microbe.
Yeah,
and here's a microbe is Fusarium strain flavolapis. Or lapis, rather, flavolapis. And when I hear fusarium, I think plant disease, and a lot of people do, because fusarium wilt is a disease of for your plants, and it can attack certain things in your garden. But in this case, it was found in the geothermal springs in the Yellowstone supervolcano. The purpose of the NASA-funded study was to prepare to send a space probe to search for life on other planets. And while still a postdoctoral researcher in 2012, Kozabal determined that the acidophilic fungus, originally dubbed MK7, could be converted into a lipid that could be converted into biodiesel. So they started with biodiesel, and then eventually they discovered it could be ingested as well. It become a food. I mean, this is science fiction stuff.
It's so awesome. It reminds me a little bit of Buckminster Fuller, and I'm going to botch this quote, but he said something like, why are we trying to find life on other planets? Because we're still here on spaceship Earth, and there's so much to discover. Who would have thought that we would find this in the pools of Yellowstone?
Yeah.
And it is this fungus, this FY fungus, that's the name of the company, Nature's Find. It's FYND.
Well, it's funny
Right.
that you should mention that because we just did a
Yeah.
post on our Facebook page, and it was.
I'm looking for it now.
I've got it. Neil deGrasse Tyson apparently said as well, and maybe he was quoting
yeah.
Buckminster Fuller. If you
I
have
love
the
him.
power to turn another planet into Earth, then you have the power to turn Earth back into Earth.
Yes, right.
All
It's
right.
wonderful.
I mean, I look at all these
Start
folks.
your own backyard.
Yeah. Well, all
Right.
the folks that are saying, oh, we should colonize Mars. Well, let's fix the planet first, okay? We can mess up another planet very easily.
Yeah.
We're already leaving space junk on Mars. Boy, that's got to be good for the planet. But here we are, and dealing with climate change and power outages in Texas on our own planet.
I see Peggy raising her hand.
Yes, Peggy.
Yeah, I was going to go back to Nature's Find for
Sure.
listeners who haven't watched their videos, etc. We're not talking about, they're not growing mushrooms. They're growing this
Microbes.
like big sheets, these big sheets of microbes into something that is then producible into product.
Good point. Yeah.
Yes, let me talk about that a little bit if you don't mind. And of course, I'm not, I don't work at Nature's Find, but I have interviewed Thomas Jonas on the Plant-Based Business Hour, ElisabethAlfano.com/PBH, if you want more information about Thomas and the company. But yes, that's right. So basically, these microbes, they can grow in any direction you want. So they give them some structure, and they can do what's called biomass fermentation. So they grow them in these huge sheets if they want to do that, and then they can have whole cuts of meat. So that's one way to do it, but they also have, as you saw in 60 Minutes with Bill Gates and Anderson Cooper eating the Nature's Find yogurt, they also just have keep it at the ingredients level, don't have to necessarily grow it in big sheets, and then you can put the components, which are very high in protein, into things like yogurt and milk, and they're doing that full range of products. That's what's so amazing. They've got chicken and sausage. I don't want to, spoiler alert for them because they're still very much pre-market. They had a couple items that were for sale on the website around the 60 Minutes breaking news, but
and
they're
they
still
sold out instantly.
immediately. Immediately. Yeah. Sure. And I've been to the factory. I hate to even I don't know what you'd call it. I've been to the lab. I've been to the test kitchen, and I've tried it all, the sausage and chicken, and it's really wonderful. It's great.
And it's weird that we have to
And
call
it's here
it.
in Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. In fact, Chicago has 2 veg tech companies. So, how cool is that? You think this stuff might all be in San Francisco, but there's also Back of the Yards Algae Sciences, which is using algae as a protein to create various plant-based foods. They're also working on cellular agriculture. They're also working on a plant-based heme. A lot of meat eaters might recognize the word heme. It's what a lot of meat eaters say makes meat. And so Back of the Yards Algae Sciences has cracked the code for a plant-based heme.
And
kind of in
for a
competition
while,
with
that was controversial. The heme when it was first revealed that was the ingredient that was producing this taste. Some folks had issues with it. I was doing some deep diving the other day, and it was odd.
Umami taste.
Yes, right. That's what gives meat its umami taste. And
You
so,
were also. I was just going to say, you were also talking about another company called Ingredient, which is also in the Chicago area.
They are up to some wonderful stuff. So Ingredient, in fact, is opening a state-of-the-art plant. Now, their plant isn't in Chicago, but they're opening that in Nebraska, and it's a complete plant-based protein dedicated plant, new state-of-the-art facility. They're being very aggressive and very innovative in bringing more plant-based proteins. They're a supply company, more plant-based proteins to the marketplace because the consumer demand for plant-based goods way outweighs the supply. So more companies are trying to meet demand, and therefore these companies need plant-based proteins. And and they're doing, they're starting with pea protein. It's the most accessible, easiest to scale, et cetera. But there's going to be other novel proteins coming down the pipeline. So Ingredient, another Chicago company, of course, Chicago, always a foodie city, is really a major player in plant-based protein supply.
Interesting you should say that, though, because this is the part of the country where you're likely to find some resistance to this. Yes.
But yes and no. So I don't know if you know this, but Chicago also has the world headquarters for the Vegan Museum, and the Vegan Museum notes the history of veganism and vegetarianism in the United States. And Chicago plays a major role in veganism in the United States because when the World's Fair happened in 1893, the Vegan Society, which originally started in the UK and then kind of had a home in Philadelphia, I think first, but no one really knew about them, if you will. And then they came to Chicago for the 1893 World's Fair, and really kind of that was the stake in the ground for vegetarianism. And I use the word vegetarian because the word vegan hadn't been coined until 1944. That's when vegetarianism took hold in the U.S., basically starting its foothold in Chicago. And a lot of other things have happened in Chicago to make that an important city for vegan and vegetarianism, like the Vegetarian Times, launched in the 70s in Chicago. So, come on now, give us our vegan and vegetarian props there, Mike.
Absolutely. All right. I got to pop something up here that you might appreciate and you might not appreciate. So this is you.
Oh gosh, oh help me. Oh Lord. This isn't fair because I've almost pulled an all-nighter to get VegTech, the Vegan Global Impact and Innovation Index, out. So I'm so tired today. There, I don't look tired. It's not fair.
No, you look fine. And that was when you were on our holiday show when we did It's a Wonderful Slice of It's a Wonderful Life. You were sort of the intro act to that. But so I will just move on to this. Tell us about barbecue with a V.
Oh, how I love barbecue. In fact, I wasn't sure if you were going to have that picture or not, so I brought some of my own. I love barbecue. Okay, so this, we talk about burgers, but I am so thrilled that I have gotten my hands on pulled pork barbecue. Mm-hmm. It is a complete plant-based pork, pulled barbecue product, and I'm so excited to have it because I'm not that I'm sick of burgers. It's just that, I'm all about VegTech, global vegan innovation. So I want to see more products, and not just for me, but if you're ever going to reach the demand that is out there from consumers, flexitarians trying to get rid of the meat and work in more veggies. It's not just me that thinks this way. That's where all the demand's coming from, is the flexitarians. They need more than just burgers. They need sausages, and they need tacos that has pulled pork. They need, pulled pork sandwiches, a classic barbecue sandwich. As we start to think about spring, are we starting to think about spring somewhere?
We are a little bit, yeah.
Okay, so barbecue out of North Carolina, but they are my go-to now. I'm having this for dinner all the time. I'm having pulled pork tacos.
What is the base? Is this a pea based or what's the base on it?
Yes. So the base is, I want to just double check myself because I'm so tired. Yes, soybean textured wheat. So it's a soy and wheat protein. Again, all your protein's going to come from plants. So we were talking earlier about how grains, have fiber and protein, and then we go ahead and give that to animals instead of people. So yes, it has soy and wheat protein and sweet potatoes. Let me just read. Sweet potatoes, pureed apple cider vinegar. I mean, so molasses, good stuff. If you recall,
and that would be in the barbecue sauce. Yeah. Can I mention?
Products. Sorry,
can I mention the site that you talk about? Shopveggie.com.
Oh yes. So yes, why talk about all this food if you can't get it?
Yeah, so if you want to do your product placement here, hold on, let me pop that up. There we go. There you go. Where's you had the bag with you? Oh, that's the.
I do have the bag. Yes. So if you want to go to shopveggie.com, this is available all across the United States. And so I guess you're saying product placement, but really what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to share with people that the vegan and vegetarian plant-based way of living is way beyond just burgers. We've moved beyond burgers. And so you're going to see a lot of that this year as I'm still talking 2021 predictions. You're going to see plant-based bacon.
And oat milk.
You're going to see whole cuts of, oat milk, which Oatly's going to go to IPO, which is going to put them on the public market, which is going to put them on VegTech, the Global Vegan Impact and Innovation Index.
Which we will see on your site scrolling across the screen. And
Yes, you will. Yes, you will. So it's been already a very busy year for this.
The next step is because, and I started to say this earlier, and we just have like a minute left, but I started to say this earlier, is that we still couch everything in terms of it's chicken or it's beef. They need their own names because we're still catering to the meat eater way of framing things. What if you call it something else? What if you just come up with its own title? Maybe at some point, some brilliant marketer will do that, and then we'll stop saying, well, this is chicken, but it's vegan chicken or whatever. You have to have its own name because words are important. Words are important.
It's going to go there. I mean, I think what's going to happen first is that you're going to see the grocery store change from the meat aisle to the protein aisle, and they're going to put plant-based protein and your, what you typically think of as protein, which is meat. They're going to put those side by side, and then people are going to stop thinking about it as, oh, this is an analog to meat. They're going to start thinking about it. Oh, it's its own thing. It's right here in the aisle where I get all my food, and they're just going to start thinking about it differently. And I think that terminology is going to start in the grocery store.
I think you're right. And the protein aisle is probably where it's going to start. There we go. Elysabeth Alfano, that's a great way to finish it. Thank you so much for being here. You can go to ElysabethAlfano.com. Don't forget, it's ELYSABETH, Alfano. And we'll have you back again in the not too distant. I'm so glad you do this on Sundays. I know how busy you are, and I know how tired you are. So
this week was particularly. I pulled a couple all-nighters, so this week was particularly tough. But I
congratulations on the launch of VegTech Index.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you heard it here on the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. All right. Meteorologist Rick DiMaio is next. Elizabeth, we'll wave goodbye. We'll see you soon.
Bye, everybody.
You can help slow climate change in 2021 by composting, and you don't even need a backyard. By composting communally in multi-unit buildings across Chicagoland, Collective Resource Compost has diverted 7,000 tons of food scrap since 2010. CRC brings you a fresh 5-gallon bucket or a 32-gallon neighbor tote with each pickup. You fill it with organic matter, they swap it out, and get it to a commercial composting operation. Fight climate change. Go to collectiveresource.us.
At Sitka Salmon Shares, we take pride in being a seafood company that's a little different. In fact, 10 seasons ago, our motto was "We do salmon differently." Nowadays, we harvest 15 species of wild-caught Alaskan fish, but still call ourselves Sitka Salmon Shares because, well, we're a little different. Our difference starts with our fleet of fishermen who own a slice of the company and are paid above industry average. They deliver fish to our docks in about half the time as other fishermen, which means higher quality of fish for you. And we never buy our fish from large processors where we don't know how each fish was caught or handled, like most other companies do. Another difference is our fish plant, which we own too. Our plant freezes fish about twice as cold and twice as fast as the other guys. This produces unparalleled quality at a cellular level. Ooh. Our difference extends to you too. By joining our community, you band together with thousands of other people who want to make a difference in the way that their food is produced. This allows our fishermen to harvest fish just for you, with the respect, thought, and care that the fish, the ocean, and you deserve. So, be a little different. Join us at sitkasalmonshares.com.
At this time of year, we spend a lot of time indoors with our plants, so help them thrive. The plants you're viewing were treated with Leafzyme, a foliage spray designed to activate beneficial microbes already present on the leaves. A spritz every few weeks promotes growth-enhancing microorganisms that process dust and other particles into nutrition that indoor plants can absorb through their leaves for beautiful and vigorous growth. Go to blazing-star.com and check out their BioGarden line for home gardeners. And then Peggy, who was drinking from her coffee, says...
The Evanston Environmental Association's Wild and Scenic Film Festival goes virtual this March, and you can be there from your home. This year's films include the story of the first African-American male to complete the Triple Crown of hiking, which we talked about before.
Yep. We talk about it every week now.
Yes. Yes. How church forests in Ethiopia protect the biodiversity of old-growth forests, and a community effort to keep an oil refinery closed after an explosion. The festival happens from 6:30 to 9 p.m. on March 19th and 26th, and tickets are available starting at just $10. Now, all proceeds from the festival support the operations and programming of the Evanston Ecology Center. So for more info and to register, visit evanstonenvironment.org/filmfest.
Environment. I'm not seeing
Environment.
This is scary. I'm not seeing Rick, and I just texted him and I said,
He
"Hey,
did send us some new stuff."
I know we've done our homework. We've got all of our.
No, but we got some more stuff this morning.
Well, I didn't see that. It's not. You think I'm going to look at anything before the show when I'm?
Let me try.
Let me respond here to this. Oh, good. I think I can reply.
I'm texting him.
All right, that's good. Oh, yeah, he sent a bunch of different maps here. Holy smoke. Text him, and tell him I sent a new link in case the one he was using just now didn't work. Let me go back here. Wait, there he is. We'll see.
Okay.
I see his ceiling. Hey, Rick, I see your ceiling. Are you with us? Dude, everybody, let's take a look at Rick's ceiling. There he is.
There he is.
Kind of frozen. Tell him I think he's frozen. He needs to relink in. There he is.
There he is.
Howdy.
I came and went.
Yeah. So as they say,
kind of like the snow.
Yeah, exactly like the snow.
It's
Wow.
gone too fast, if you ask me.
Why? Were you still out there skiing?
Yeah, I got about 8 runs in, and all of a sudden it got a little warm, and then it got cold, and it got crusty, and because it was one of those snows that. What's that, Peg?
Then you were skiing on the grass and the mud.
Yeah, it wasn't very pleasant. I mean, you couldn't get any traction. So this was a real dry snow to begin with. So because it was dry, when it started to melt, you had this like very flaky nature to the snowflakes, and then they became like little icicles or crystals, and then it got packed down, and it wasn't very useful. So if it would have been a wet snow that melted and then refroze, you can get some nice tracks in, but it just wasn't the right consistency. So yeah, I think I ended my cross-country ski season about a week ago, and with that much snow on the ground, I was hoping for it to be a little bit longer, but it is what it is, right? It's the end of February.
It melted quickly, man. I mean, a week. Basically, it's been sort of whiplash around here. We had this winter that started out so warm for 3 months, basically, and then we hit this 2.5 week period that is just brutal. And and you said in the email, don't get you started on Texas, but we might have to. But at any rate, it's brutal here, and it's cold, and it's snow, and then suddenly in a week, it's almost in my front yard. Most of those piles have melted, and I've got daffodils coming up right now.
It was 54 yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I saw some daffodils as well in my backyard here. But again, you got to remember, this was a very dry, fluffy snow on dry, fluffy snow on dry, fluffy snow. So it was going to melt pretty quickly. But again, we've also had a lot of sunshine, and the sunshine or the amount of radiation we get this time of the year is equal to about the 12th or 13th of October.
Right.
When you can easily get up to about, 61, maybe 62 degrees. Peg mentioned we got up to 54 yesterday, and that was with a lot of snow cover. That's because the wind was coming out of the south. And if you drive about 50 miles south of Chicago, just south of Kankakee, there's no snow. I mean, St. Louis made it into the mid-60s 2 days in a row. And we've seen this before. We've seen rapid, melt-offs of snow in late February, because you can do it in late February. The one good thing is that it didn't come with a lot of rain, which would have produced some flooding and then some runoff. I have to say, guys, I think this is going to be a fantastic spring for any sort of perennials, because before we got real cold, we had some really decent snow, which meant that the ground temperatures were probably fairly well insulated. And I guarantee if you would have stuck a thermometer in the ground about maybe 4 inches down below the surface, it probably would have still been, maybe 31 degrees. If you remember, Mike, I don't know if you remember Peg, but this was about 10 years ago. We had an incredibly cold February, a very, very cold March, and we had no snow on the ground. And the permafrost went down almost 10 inches.
Yeah.
And it probably killed a lot of bulbs that maybe people didn't plant, far enough down into the soil. But I don't think that's the case with this year. So even though we got cold and even though we got a lot of snow, the snow really afforded a lot of insulation to the soil. And now the fact that we've melted off in a very slow, percolating, stage, or manner is a better way of saying it, I think this does nothing but bode well for anything that's going to be, growing just simply on, sunshine and warmth of soil and groundwater over the next 2 to 3 weeks.
I think you're absolutely right. I look at this, and I will repeat something we said with Lisa Hilgenberg from the Chicago Botanic Garden earlier in the show, which is the ground's really going to be saturated, which is going to be good for some plants. It's going to be very bad if you walk on it. So stay off your soils right now, because you're just going to compact them, let them dry out a little bit. And it's interesting, and I see this every year, especially when we have a lot of snow. If I look across the street, their snow piles were on the north side of their building, so they're not melting nearly as fast as the snow piles on my side, because I have a southern exposure here, and that will be the case for a while. On the north side of the street, or on the south side of the street, you're going to see snow piles. On the north side, not so much, because of the angle of the sun.
Right.
So it's going to continue.
And I made sure that when I was sleepwalking last night, I stayed on the sidewalk. I didn't go on the mud piles or anything like that.
And were you sleepwalking in your cross-country skis?
That would have been interesting. Yeah.
That would have been a Facebook video.
Yeah. So
I have to say, though, I'd say the last time I went cross-country skiing over here in Harms Woods, I had taken my skis off, and walking on those boots is not very easy. And I had an icy patch, and man, I went boom, boom.
Yikes.
I went down in a hurry. Yeah. As we all know, those cross-country ski boots are not meant for walking, except connected to your skis. But I even got an email from Nancy Tuckman, who is our dean at the School of Environmental Sustainability
at Loyola University.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she lives up not far from the Botanic Gardens. And when I sent her, I send them, information just like I send you guys every Saturday morning. And when I sent her my long-range forecast, she said, "You know what? I'm actually not looking forward to the warm weather, because I've been enjoying the skiing so much that she's been able to get out. Yeah, she's been able to get out, 15 or 20 times. And I think also because, we've been stuck inside. We had no snow for, December and January, or the first 3 weeks. And all of a sudden you get it and you go, wow, this is what it feels like. Plus you can do it at, 5 in the afternoon and it's not dark. And then all of a sudden what Mother Nature gave to us, all of a sudden, is taken away. And we all know the month of March is, it's nice, but it's gray and it's, kind of cool, and the ground is mushy. You're in that in-between.
Yeah, and it's really
it's waiting for spring, and it's not there yet.
Right, and as we said earlier, it's too early. March is too early to be out in your yard gardening. I mean, even I will even disagree with Lisa a little bit when she said you can, if you're careful, you can groom your garden a little bit. I just say, leave it. The leaves will they'll decompose as things get warmer. Don't even worry about it right now. But yeah, we're in that weird. Kathleen has a phrase that she's used for decades. She says it's March in Chicago, which means that everybody's depressed, everybody is stir crazy, everybody wants to get outside. And now we're adding on top of it a pandemic where everybody's been shut in for a year. And all, I'm a little concerned about getting warm weather real quick, because people are going to go nuts. They're going to want to get out there.
Yeah, at least with the pandemic, you were walking around with, a mask on your face for, to keep warm, and that kind of helped us out a little bit. But yeah, we'll see how things go. But the bottom line is, we're looking at winter 2021 in our rearview mirror. I mean, I'd said this last week. You could put a fork in it from a standpoint of any more Arctic cold. We're not done with polar cold, and we're certainly not done with mid-latitude cyclones. But one thing that's for sure is that when you have a pattern like this, you're bound to get more of storms coming in basically from the Rocky Mountains and the northern plains. So the chances of us getting any sort of real infusion of Gulf of Mexico moisture, I think is really, really difficult. It's just not gonna, the pattern just doesn't want to do something like that. But it's interesting to note that, this week looks like fairly active weather across the Central Plains. Another active storm system goes south of us by the end of the week. So we're going to be basically on the north side of the storm track, the same storm track that stayed, south of us back in November. It almost looks like the pattern is going back to where it was in November. The only thing I get concerned about it with is that we still haven't seen any significant amounts of precipitation in the desert Southwest or the Rocky Mountains. As much as you look at Colorado when people are skiing there, they have not had much in the way of any snow. And that's the area that we went into the winter season with severe drought, and we're coming out of the winter season with extreme drought.
Yikes.
And if that's the case, we can end up with some really, really serious concerns on how that plays out in heat in the Central Plains, whether or not that moves into the Midwest, but more so for them, obviously wildfires.
Right.
So even though we're thinking, March here, you look at the long-term pattern based on what the short-term pattern didn't give us, and that was significant precipitation over the desert Southwest. Pacific Northwest are fine. Oregon and Washington had huge amounts of precipitation this winter. We're going to probably end up with, I think it ends up 21.8 inches of snow here officially at O'Hare for the month of February. We'll end up with almost 35 at Midway and almost 9 at Rockford. Yeah, I know. Yeah, a real strange. Yeah, normally you would think it'd be the other way around. You would have more at Rockford.
You said 9 at Rockford?
That's it for the month.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's it.
Wow.
They
is that all lake effect then?
Oh yeah, there were 2 or 3 different little mesoscale events that went right over O'Hare, but it was the lake effect with that last event that really boosted the totals at Midway Airport. And again, the lakes, we went from 3% ice on the 15th of January to 5% on the 25th to 10% on February the 15th to 40% on February 19th to 30% this past week. And part of that is due to, not only the fact that, we're warming up the ice and basically melting it, but the ice that we had along the Chicago lakefront miraculously just kind of moved to the other side of the lake. It didn't really, quote, melt. It moved to the other side of the lake, got mixed in with a lot of water, and then that obviously subsided it into the warmer lake water, and that was it. But the fact of the matter is we had a lot of that snow, eastern Cook County, mainly due to lake effect. Yeah, so you're right about that, Peg.
Oh, so one of the things you sent us was about this crazy weather we had in the past 3 weeks, including what happened in Texas. And you sent some really interesting articles about how it's and if it's related to global climate change. Perhaps, obviously we can't go through the whole thing, but it's an SSW event. Explain to folks what an SSW event is.
That's sudden stratospheric warming. So in our atmosphere, you have the troposphere, which goes from the surface up to about 15 miles. In the wintertime, it's only about 9 miles up. In the summertime, it's about 18 miles up, depending on where you are over the equator or over the mid-latitudes. Above that, you have the stratosphere. The stratosphere goes from about average of 12 miles up to about 30. then you have the mesosphere, the thermosphere, then you have the exosphere. So at the bottom of the stratosphere is where you have your planetary ozone, and that actually captures a lot of the shortwave radiation from the sun. The ultraviolet blocks it out and it warms it up. What happens every once in a while is you'll have this ring around the North Pole above the troposphere. So you have the stratosphere and the troposphere, and sometimes if the stratosphere gets too warm, it'll actually push down on the troposphere, almost like having a double layer of Jell-O cake, if you remember those from back in the 70s. Those god-awful things.
I haven't thought of Jell-O cake in years.
Yeah, I mean, and the only reason why we did it was because your mom probably bought those molds from someone who was knocking on the door and said, "I'd like to buy these molds." I mean, I grew up in a household where we had like 8 of those molds nailed to the
on the wall,
nailed to the sanitest or the wall covering. I mean, it was just next to the avocado refrigerator. So, but the bottom line is the troposphere literally gets pinched off by the warming stratosphere, and as that tropospheric ring kind of splits, one part of the split goes on one side of the globe and the other side goes to the other side of the globe. That's where we get into the polar vortex, all right? So sudden stratospheric warming events will always happen every year. You'll get this warming and it'll get squeezed and it'll push out and it'll push down on the polar vortex. But once every 10 years, you'll get a really dramatic sudden stratospheric warming event. And that's definitely what happened this year. If you recall, this was back in like late January. We were talking about the possibility of a polar vortex splitting. Well, it had already split and it moved into China and Russia, and it was incredibly cold over North and South Korea and Japan and China for almost 4 or 5 weeks. I mean, it was monstrously cold in areas of northern China and Mongolia. I mean, I was watching it, daily. And as long as it stayed over there, you were okay here in the United States. But once that began to weaken, it pushed the other part of the polar vortex. There were like 2 parts to it. It pushed it over Europe. Then it kind of moved back. And then when we had that huge storm over the Northeast on February 1st, the one that gave them like 30 to 35 inches, it literally allowed the polar vortex that was over Northern Europe to move across the North Pole, Greenland, and then move all the way westward. It actually retrograded, because what happens when the sudden stratospheric warming event occurs, the winds up at about 50,000 feet actually reverse. So what it did is it actually pushed the polar vortex west. That dropped southward over us, and then we had this pinching, which literally took it all the way down into the northern plains. Now, as cold as we were here, it was much colder across Minnesota, North Dakota, eastern Montana, down into, say, the Central Plains, and eventually it kind of slithered all the way down into Texas. The only good thing about it was it didn't happen until basically the second week of February. If that would have happened earlier in the year, like in January, remember a couple of years ago when we had a high of like -10 and a low of like -23, we would have had weather like that. So it's not like we haven't seen these in the past. They just seem to be happening with a little bit more fervor for a shorter amount of time. And we seem to be getting more of these shorter duration of very, very intense periods of cold weather. Sometimes they'll happen early in the year, which are induced by really strong typhoon action across the North Pacific. But I think the real key to why this winter didn't really start out cold was the phenomenal warmth that was over the Northern Pacific. That blob that Peg referred to several times, that kept the jet stream far north, and we kept getting these flows of air into the Pacific Northwest and the Northern Plains, and we never got cold. And we went through literally the month of November and December and even early January with just westerly flow, westerly flow, westerly flow, and there was no Arctic air. But as soon as we started to lay down some cold and some snow, that's when the polar vortex said, I'm going to come and visit you. So it's not like this hasn't happened in the past, and it's not like Texas hasn't been this cold in the past. They've had record cold 1899, even 1936. Believe it or not, during the height of the Dust Bowl. They had one of the coldest periods ever on record. But if you look at the population of Texas, Texas is now at 29 million people. 10 years ago, they were at 24 million. Before that, they were 19 million. So the fact that the state of Texas has refused to integrate themselves with the other states around them and refused to be oversight, from a standpoint of federal regulations, made them highly, highly vulnerable to a catastrophic event becoming much, much worse. If you go back into western Texas and northwest Texas, they've always been this cold. They get blizzards in Amarillo. They get, bone-chilling cold in Midland and in Lubbock.
Yeah.
But that's not where the power surges were. It was in your population density areas of Dallas and Austin and San Antonio and Houston, because you now have all these new customers, 10 million more people than you had 20 years ago, still trying to use the same heating system and the same electrical system that hasn't been upgraded because Texas goes, we can do things the way we want. Texas first. Just like America first, Texas ended up being last in this last cold wave. Should have never happened.
And because they didn't insulate it, obviously, that was a huge issue as well.
Yeah, the fact that they blamed the renewables for not providing enough energy is total garbage. Like, what's that about?
Well,
that's like blaming the bully in 8th grade for why he didn't graduate from college, 9 years later.
If you look in depth in it, and it's really cynical. Governor Abbott went on Dallas TV the day before he went on Fox, and he said, "Yeah, the gas lines had a problem. We couldn't get our fossil fuel." The next day he goes on Fox and he blames it on solar and wind.
Renewables.
I'm like, it's just so cynical. And then they start attacking, AOC, who comes to Texas and raises money to help people. Boy, you guys are bereft of any ideas at all. Except they run the state and they run our government in the minority. So there you go. All right, we're running out of time here. So it looks like things are warming up. Looks like it's, as you said, winter is over. So what do we got coming at us right now?
Well, the funny thing about it is we're warming up, but we're supposed to be doing that this time of the year. Normal high is 40.
Yeah.
When people say 45, they go, I can't believe how warm it is. But 45 is only 5 degrees above normal. So the bottom line, though, we're certainly not nearly as cold as we were. We're done with the snow. We're done with the Arctic air. 4 to 5 degrees, or I should say 5 to 10 degrees above normal for the next 4 to 5 days. There's some inklings that this warmer air coming back at us for Thursday and Friday of this coming week may not get here. It may hold back a little bit. But, man, if you look at the way the entire pattern is, we're no longer in that wavy flow. It's more so coming in from the west. And as long as that happens, I don't think there's any chance of a late mid-March, mid-latitude cyclone event that can pull a lot of snow or a lot of cold air back over us. Got to be careful, though. Average snowfall for the month of March is 5.6. And Peg's talked about this before. The last 3 Aprils have produced more snow than the month of December. So we're not done with snow by any stretch of the imagination, but we're done with the Arctic cold. And the one thing that's really nice is at 6 o'clock in the evening, it's bright out. Yeah, that's I think, because
and we change times in 2 weeks.
And we change times in 2 weeks. And if you notice, because we still have so much snow on the ground to the west of us, this time of the year, that brightness off the snow and the blue sky, you almost get like dusk that lasts for like 20 minutes, if you've noticed that.
The sunsets have been incredible.
Yeah, they've really, really been nice. I hope that the clouds today will clear out. We'll get to see another full moon tonight like we did the last 2 nights. But sunny, cool tomorrow, high of only 35 lakefront. And then most likely mid-40s for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. But nothing in the way of any significant precip. So whatever snow that we have out there is going to go right down into the soil, which is good news.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I'm sorry you can't get back out on your skis, but, I am concerned, and we'll be talking about it as the season goes on. We ended last year with wildfires in Colorado, and we might be seeing that again this year. That's a shame. Let's keep an eye on that.
But remember, last spring was the wettest spring on record. I don't want to go through that again. My dog every day was plomping his feet down in the mud, and he's doing it now. And I'm sure he's already looking up new dog owners in Phoenix, Arizona.
Well, the one thing we know is that we have no idea what's going to be here. Nature has a way of surprising us, so I'm with you there. All right, Rick, have a great week. We'll talk to you next Sunday.
Sounds good. Take care, guys.
You too. All right, there he goes. And before we wrap things up, there's only one thing that I have to tell you.
Alan!
All right, I had to get that in there just at least one more time. Okay. Hey, look, we got through. Rick was here and everything. People don't need to know how panicked we were as we were trying to get Lisa Hilgenberg on, but that's okay. I want to thank Lisa for being on the show. Boy, great advice. Go to our website and you can sign up for some classes at the Chicago Botanic Garden. Thanks to Elysabeth Alfano and the great news that she had on our show. Thanks to Kathleen, as always. Thanks to meteorologist Rick DiMaio, to Basil the dog, Legata the cat, and of course our gopher or whatever, Alan. Until next time, Alan.
Steve.
Until next time, go green or
go home.
Yes, it's over. How'd you like it?
I don't know. I slept through the whole thing.
Well, you didn't miss much.